Welcome to the CheckRare Brief, your weekly roundup of the biggest developments in rare disease.
Each week, we explain why those stories matter, not just to one specialty, but across the entire rare disease community.
Whether discussing the latest clinical trials, conference updates, or updates from the FDA, will help you stay up to date in just a few minutes. I'm James Radke.
I'm Peter Suzuki.
And I'm Madeline Spencer. This is the CheckRare Brief. The FDA approved Takeda's Orzeyful, Oveporexton on August 5th for the treatment of narcolepsy type 1, nearly 2 months ahead of its September 30th target date. It is the first approved orexin receptor agonist for narcolepsy. Jim, what does this approval mean for patients?
It's very exciting. Right now, there are several therapies for narcolepsy, but this one is the first drug approved to address the underlying biology of narcolepsy, not just its symptoms. It's an orexin receptor 2 agonist, which directly targets the pathway involved in narcolepsy. In their statement for the approval, the FDA recommended that the drug be a scheduled substance, so it's not available yet, and that should take a couple months for that review to happen. Regardless, this is a dramatic change on how patients with narcolepsy could be managed. And the manufacturers, Takeda, they're already making plans to dispense the drug via specialty pharmacies following the DEA's review.
Peter, would you like to comment on this approval?
Yes, about 200,000 people in the United States have narcolepsy, making this disease one of the most significant patient populations within the rare disease community. What's encouraging about this approval is that it gives patients and physicians another option while targeting the biology, the underlying biology of the disease in a different way. That's what progress in rare disease should look like, not just one treatment for a patient population, but continued innovation that gives patients more choices and at the end of the day, hopefully better outcomes.
Camp 4 is advancing CMP-002 into a first-in-human phase 1/2 trial for SYNGAP1-related disorder. The treatment is designed to increase production of the SYNGAP1 protein, potentially addressing the underlying biology of the disease rather than simply treating the symptoms. Jim, what is SYNGAP1-related disorder?
It's a genetic condition due to a random mutation in the SYNGAP gene. It's not inherited per se. It's an extremely difficult disease for the family and the children involved. They have autistic-like behaviors in addition to seizures, GI problems, intellectual disabilities. Right now, there's no treatment for this condition, and families are very eager to get this trial underway. The drug is what's called an antisense therapy, so it binds to the regulatory RNA that in turn binds to the DNA to increase its activity. So in the end result is hopefully that this drug will increase the SYNGAP gene to increase SYNGAP protein to more normal levels. There's still a long way to go, but this is a huge milestone for this community to finally have a therapy that goes after the pathophysiology of this disease.
10 years ago, SYNGAP wasn't really on anyone's radar, and now there's a trial starting. Can you comment on that, Peter?
About 3 or 4 years ago, I interviewed a mom and a researcher in SYNGAP, and this is really a good example of how the rare disease landscape has changed for this rare disease. The disease was always there, but advances in genetic testing and the work of patient advocacy groups helped identify these patients and give the condition a name. Once you can identify a patient population, you can begin to understand the natural history of the disease, develop clinical trials, and ultimately attract investment in treatments. That's an important part of the progress we're seeing in ultra rare diseases such as this.
BioMarin has terminated development of BMN 401 after the phase 3 trial failed to meet one of its two co-primary endpoints. BioMarin had paid $270 million for Inozyme less than a year ago, mostly for this drug. Jim, what is ENPP1 deficiency?
It is a genetic disorder that results in the reduction of pyrophosphatate. That creates a number of problems throughout the body. But in reference to this study by BioMarin, it causes rickets or soft bones. The drug, BMN 401, is an enzyme replacement therapy. The trial did show that the drug improved pyrophosphate levels, which is what they wanted to show, but there was a second outcome measure that was not met, and that was improvement in bone health. And that was a clinically relevant measure that the FDA required. I looked through clinicaltrials.gov and other resources, and I didn't see any other clinical trials currently in development for this condition.
Peter, this is quite the setback. Is this common in drug development?
Well, a failed clinical trial doesn't necessarily mean the underlying science was wrong. It could reflect the endpoint, trial design, or the magnitude of the treatment effect. In this case, BioMarin took all of these things into consideration and came to the conclusion that the best approach was to stop any other development for this therapy. A lot of time and money goes into getting a drug into phase 3 trials, so it was probably not an easy decision for BioMarin to make. Very disheartening for this community. Half of the children with this disease do not live past 6 months of age. So when a trial like this fails, it affects a lot of people, and it's hard to see.
Before we wrap up, here's what we'll be watching this week. On August 17th, the US FDA is expected to make a decision on Bristol-Myers Squibb's irbidamide for the treatment of multiple myeloma. Additionally, Capricor's deramiocel for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, discussed in last week's episode, has a PDUFA date of August 22nd.
The headlines change every week, but our mission stays the same: to help you understand what's happening across the rare disease community.
If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join us next week for another edition of the CheckRare Brief.